What's going on, guys? Welcome back to review and discussion for UnOrdinary episode 265. Now, I know that a lot of you are well aware that I've been disappointed by the previous few chapters of UnOrdinary, but I am here to say that I think both episode 265 and episode 266, honestly, play off of each other incredibly well. They set up what's to come, and I think they do it in a very, very good way. Now, we will clearly talk about episode 266 in the 266 review and discussion, but I just want to lay that out there now, that I actually really like these chapters, especially considering the previous events of the previous events of the prior chapters, which you all know that I do have major gripes with. So, honestly, these two chapters, I think, did do a pretty good job of, maybe not essentially getting over what happened with John in 263, 264, but, it sets up some cool stuff. So, let's go ahead and get this started. So, chapter starts off with Blake and Ison in the hospital as Remy and Arlo check up on them, and Blake mentions that he's, wanting to get discharged already because he's healed up now. And Ison, meanwhile, however, mentions to Blake, he doesn't need to, rub in that he has awesome healing powers. And, I read that, and I was kind of like, wait a minute. We've seen this before, and I got to thinking, is this a possible hint at Ison becoming a high tier soon-ish? Because the last time something happened like this was in episode 149, when Remy, Blake, and Ison were all discussing John's ability and everything, and Remy brought up his passive, and Blake just said something along the lines of, oh man, I wish I had some cool high-tier passive abilities, he was like, oh, high-tier things, I really wish I could relate. So, I'm curious, is Uru hinting at, is that a possible hint, or, a reference to, hey, Ison's turns up next? Who knows? I think that'd be really cool. I think that would be really cool, because I don't know if Blake is going to get another level up soon, but I do think it would be cool if, Ison becomes a flat high tier at 5. Meanwhile, him and Blake are even for once. We know that when Blake had his previous levels, Uru said, it was confirmed, they're pretty evenly matched still. Ison is a lot more creative with his ability. Blake's become a lot more creative, but I do think, having them just flat even as opposed to just equals, that doesn't make sense. Anyway, I think having them as actual level equals as opposed to just no, they're pretty evenly matched. I think that'd be pretty cool. Anyway, so immediately after this, though, Ison mentions that the hospital's tonics are working really slow, and he mentions missing Doc, wishing that he was still around. And Arlo mentions that he's most likely found a way better job, where he doesn't have to babysit kids anymore. And that then, a nice little callback to both Doc's conversation with Layla at the end of 225, where, she texts him hey, my manager's really interested in you, expect a call soon. And also, when episode 1, where Blake and Ison were fighting at the tail end of it in the halls, and then Doc, intervenes, drags him to the infirmary during episode 6. Now, there is another reason why I wanted to bring this up, just because, things. We'll talk about it in the next video, though. But, yeah, it's true, because, even Blake and Ison are just why do I feel so called out right now? A nice little hint to, earlier chapters, and, yeah. So, we cut back to, the chapter then cuts back to John waking up again at the tail end of 264, and he sees Sarah with him, and he gives, a very slight smile, just glad she's here. But as she wakes up too, he's about to speak to her, but he begins to throw up, and he learns that he's been asleep for about a day now. And then he recounts that this is the same side effects that Sarah had back in episode 75. Episodes like, because back then, when Sarah woke up, she immediately ran to the bathroom, and she had also been asleep for, I think for her, it was maybe about half of the day. Actually no. Yeah, it might have been noon when I'll check the time on, put that on screen. Anyway, but yeah, John recounts the experience that he experienced seeing Sarah go through all this, and he was just like, oh yeah, the same things that happened to you. Now, Sarah asked John if he's tried activating his ability, which I thought was kind of weird. I mean, like, he literally just woke up, and she's just like, oh hey, have you tried activating your ability yet? I just felt like that was kind of weird. But that is the first thing that she tried doing after waking up. One of the first things after throwing up. It's like the first immediate thing, because she was like, oh God, I remember my rewind didn't work before. Anyway, and he tries to activate his ability, but he mentions his channels are completely closed off. Now, a lot of people have been bringing up and speculating, and I think it's entirely possible. Jane's ability is Channel Master. We're most likely going to be meeting John's uncle, grandpa, long-lost cousin, whatever, soon. Probably has a channel-based ability to like Jane. Maybe he's the level 10 that we finally meet. But a lot of people have been speculating that he's going to show up and re-unlock John's aura channels for him. Now, personally, I feel like there was a lot better ways to introduce him, but I could see that happening at this point. Anyway, so John does mention that it's probably for the best, since he doesn't have to worry about losing control again. We know that John is very hesitant when it comes to his ability. But then Sarah tries reassuring him, saying he's hardly lost control since he came back. And he retorts with his confrontation with the Rowden Royals, which, quick sidebar, now that I was reading this chapter and recounting everything that happened, I feel like Uru probably wanted to give us one last epic fight with John's ability full powered, since she knew that he was about to lose it. So, quick sidebar, just kind of like, wait a minute. Is that why Uru did that now? Because she knew that he was going to get dampened, and that fight, it would still be nice to read. It would still be an important fight, but it wouldn't be as cool as something like, John just fucking... Ah! Anyway, yeah, there's that. But Sarah points out that John still stopped, and he did, and, John did struggle in the past when people would try to stop him. He would lash out. But lately, when people have been like, yo, John, stop, you've already won. Lately when that's been happening, he's still been doing it. Yes, he might have gone a little bit overboard with the Rowden Royals, but at the end of the day, John still did realize he was going too far, and he stopped. Which, like I said back then, that was a big, major step. And, it was cool. It was... it's growth. It was character growth. And then she also mentions that John still used his ability to protect everyone in the mountains, and he was in control there. And he was completely in control of the situation until, they started getting ambushed and everything towards the tail end of it when Terrence showed up. And, I think that's very fair. I think it's very fair points that Sarah made to John. And even John himself realizes, and he's telling himself he was thinking straight, and he did do something meaningful. And, I think that was a very big step for John, because, like I've been beating this with a dead horse, really, but, John has always struggled with never knowing when to use his ability. And even when he was in the mountains, he recalled, Sarah, Sarah making him promise, please use your ability to defend yourself and others. William telling him, you're strong, John. You need to just decide how much power you need to use in order to do it. And Blake, hey, didn't you ever feel proud when you when you like found out you could do new things with your ability. And it was nice to see John like, like I did do something meaningful. I was in control. So it was nice to see John, compliment himself. But he does still say it doesn't matter because his ability is gone. But Sarah thinks to herself, not if I have anything to say about that. So clearly, Sarah has some sort of plan up her sleeve, which I think is really cool. Now, Remy and Arlo do show up to check in on John as well. And Remy mentions that everyone was worried he wouldn't wake up, which catches John off guard a little bit. He's kind of like, wait, they were worried about me? And, that's kind of sad on John's part, but at the same time understandable considering his history with them. But it's also nice to just hear, like, everyone, like, been worried. And they even got him the bouquet of flowers. Like, hey, John, like, please get better soon. Now that I think about it, that's also kind of weird. So it's barely been a day. Still, regardless, like, it's a sweet sentiment. I just realized, like, wait, like, that kind of makes, to me personally, that makes it seem like he's been asleep for, like, a week or something. Fucking comatose Sarah up in this bitch. Wait, yeah, how long was Sarah? Wait, Sarah never went unconscious then, or at least we didn't see it. What was the point then? Anyway, it's not the point of this video. So, another real quick sidebar. I don't know what it was about a lot of the Remy panels in this episode, but she looked really cute in a lot of the shots. I don't know. Whoever was in charge of the panels where Remy was super cute, awesome job. Just another quick sidebar. Anyway, Arlo mentions that a lot of the Spectre agents got away, but Terrence and a few others were imprisoned and likely to be questioned soon. Now, this is interesting. Like I mentioned, I do think that Terrence is out of the picture for now, at least, but I do think it's very likely that we will still see him again. Spectre clearly has a lot of connections, but when the authorities, he's under the detainment of the authorities right now. So I think it's possible, and I would honestly prefer that Terrence just fucking go away forever. Like, I'm fucking sick of him. Like I mentioned before, like I mentioned in the last video, I think he was a poorly executed character, and I would just prefer him be gone now. But we still don't even know his actual name, so I wouldn't be surprised if he's still a threat later in the story. But he's also disabled, so I was gonna say he has invisibility. He can probably use it to like break out. But then I realized, wait, no, he can't. He's disabled. He can't do shit. Anyway, there's that. So, Remy mentions that everyone is mostly fine, just a few minor injuries compared to John, Blake, and Ison. But Vaughn is under fire right now, and his qualifications are being questioned at the moment. But they also mentioned that they haven't told anyone about John's condition right now. Now, stuff with Vaughn, I can understand, like I said in the reaction, at the end of the day, these were still, Royals, even including the Royals, these were still, and I realized this, and I didn't think of it sooner, but these were still like students who went on a trip far from the school completely unsupervised. Now, like we've all been saying, like I've always said, the society in UnOrdinary definitely functions different from us, so it is kind of hard to tell what is allowed, what isn't allowed. But yeah, no, I can't see why Vaughn would be. I could see in this chapter why Vaughn would be under a lot of fire and a lot of heat at the moment. We'll get into that in the next reaction. But Remy then tells John that she knows why she came on the trip, but regardless of what his intentions were, because, it was pretty clear after that, John never gave a shit about the safe house. John did, but his main priority was still Sarah. But, she tells him, like, hey, like, regardless of that, I just want to thank you. Like, you've done us a really big favor. And she even tells him that if he ever needs it, they all have his back. And that was really touching to see, actually. That was really touching to see. I'm glad, I brought this up way back when. I'm glad that Remy didn't give up on John. She was, when he came back, she was hesitant. She was just like, she was pretty stern and like firm with him. Like, just like, if you want to be part of this, like, you have to integrate with us. But she never gave up. She never told John, fuck you, get lost, not on my watch, like Blake did. Clearly, Blake's turning around on that. But, it was nice to see, like, Remy, like, even after everything John has done to them, Remy just being like, hey, we have your back. Like, like, basically just like, you're one of us now, John. It's okay. Like, if you want, and she especially says, like, if you want our help or if you need it, we are here. It's a nice touch. I like it. And John's reaction to this actually is kind of sad, though. Possibly thinking yet again that he doesn't deserve this kind of support system he has, like he mentioned to Sarah when he was back in New Boston. But it's understandable. Like, John clearly knows that he has done a lot of bad things, and he's trying to work on that. But, it's just kind of sad. Like, even after he's acknowledging doing something right for once, to me, it still kind of feels like he's just like, man, I don't deserve people like this. So, After that is kind of the last bit. Actually, no, I think that is the very last bit of the hospital trip. So, a certain amount of time passes because, Uru doesn't like giving us actual dates in it or anything. But we are back at Wellston now, with Arlo roaming the halls, and he's texting Valerie. But I noticed the second time reading this episode, he has a bit of an angry expression on his face. Like, usually we see Arlo and he's just kind of like, I'm Arlo, cool. Like, neutral expression. But this time he was kind of like, Like he was already ticked off. And I can see why, like, Arlo is slowly but surely finding out that, the authorities may not be completely what he thought they were, what he's been assumedly led to believe his entire life. And when he's texting his aunt, who, he does not know yet that she's involved, but, it was just something weird I noticed. Like, he's already pissed off. So I don't think that Arlo is going into this interview actually hoping to get a spot. I think he is going to try and play that card. We'll get into that in this little next tidbit. But I think he's going with the intent to get some more information, because I don't think that I think Arlo is the last person who still trusts the authorities completely, but, that is starting to be broken down and torn apart. Last bit of this chapter. While Arlo is setting up or talking to Valerie about that meeting, she also mentions, like, hey, if you need to push the meeting back to next week, we can. But he just says, no, I'm fine. She mentions that the Bureau is excited to meet him. Or he has an interview with the Bureau. So, interesting. But Arlo, while he's texting, notices that a lot of students are talking about a woman with Keen who's very attractive, very pretty. And it's Cassandra finally making her move. She's finally showing up. And that was pretty cool to see, actually. It's her old stomping ground. She was Queen of Wellston. So, Arlo notices them, and he addresses Keen, and Cassandra sees him, and she knows that he's Valerie's nephew. She's kind of like, oh, this is Valerie's nephew. And she introduces herself to Arlo, and, Keen introduces him too. Like, oh yeah, Arlo's had, Arlo held on to the seat of king for 2 years. And Valerie was just like, hey, that's quite an accomplishment. And she reaches out to, shake his hand and everything. And Arlo introduces himself politely to her. Now, granted, Arlo's never, to be a jackass to people, right off the bat. But he does usually, compose himself, contain himself, keep a neutral expression, like, hey, nice to meet you. But with her, he was kind of like, hey, thanks, good to meet you. And that honestly caught me off guard. I was kind of like, why is Arlo playing so friendly all of a sudden? He was just, ticked off and everything. But then someone in the comments reminded me that Arlo is a good actor, which I had forgotten about. Arlo is a really good actor. He played that whole thing with John. You know, Arlo is a damn good liar when he needs to be one. And, you know, I'd honestly forgotten about that. So that was pretty cool. Like, I had forgotten about that, but, like, you know, like, it was completely right. Like, we haven't seen it in a long time because Arlo hasn't really needed to use it. But Arlo, you know, he's good at putting up a face. He's good at putting up a face. Like a lot of people in UnOrdinary, let's be real. But, like I said, that was the end of the chapter. Arlo, while they're walking off, though, one last little tidbit. As Keen and Cassandra are walking off, you know, like, she has a meeting with the headmaster, Arlo looks back at her, completely devoid of the expression he just had. Kind of like, it's his neutral expression. He's just, like, looking at her. But I think that was a way of, like, him showing, like a member of the authorities, like, you know, like, maybe I should keep my eye on her, kind of thing. So that is episode 265. And honestly, like I said, I really like this episode. I think it set up a lot of cool stuff. It introduced a lot, or it had a lot of really cool callbacks and everything. And like I mentioned, it plays off of episode 266 incredibly well. So I will be tackling 266 immediately and getting that out to you guys so we can be ready for episode 267 on Wednesday. But yeah, that's it for this episode review and discussion. Honestly, this is a really good episode. You know, it's a lot of good setup. So I would give episode 265 UnOrdinary. I would give that a level 8, honestly. I'll give that a level 8. Spoiler alert, 266 might be a level 9, actually. Might be a level 9. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the episode and the review. Let me know what you guys thought down below, if you agree with me in any of, like, you know, my thoughts or anything, or if you have something else you want to point out that I didn't catch in this episode. Yeah, but that'll be it for now, guys, and as always, see you, Space Cowboy.